on top there. The story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Also, Rais aeleza gumzo lake la mwisho na hayati Kolimo is another story that you want to follow inside the Taifa Leo today. It continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Let's see what we have inside the Business Daily this morning. There you go. World Bank warns Kenya on risk of expensive loans. This is another warning. Is it writing on the wall? Global lender raises concerns on the productivity of projects that Kenya and other African countries are funding through costly loans. Are they speaking from both sides of the mouth? Because just the other day they were actually given a tidy sum of money. That is the 75 billion shillings the World Bank advanced Kenya for this year's budget support, yet now they're warning Kenya at the same time. Global lender raises concerns on the productivity of projects that Kenya and other African countries are funding through costly loans. That is inside the Business Daily. Today, the World Bank has raised the red flag over the high cost at which Kenya and other African countries are borrowing commercial loans, warning of future repayments difficulties if the debts are not invested in productive projects. The World Bank Vice President for Africa, Hafez Ghanem, in a wide-ranging exclusive interview with the Business Daily, indicated that Kenya's debt level has not yet reached a tipping point, but raises concerns over low-yielding investments that do not generate, of course, a return of investment. I think it continues there inside the Business Daily on page 4. And you can see his picture here. This is Hafez Ghanem, who is the World Bank VP for Africa. Also, still on the front page of the Daily Nation, Wambui Kolimo, Bob left when applause was loudest. This is what she said yesterday, weighed down by cancer and counting down to his last day here on earth. Former Safaricom CEO Bob Kolimo was still generous enough to dedicate Samuel Barber's Adagio for Strings as the epical piece of art to lighten up mourners at his memorial service. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. A related picture as well. He's here on the front page of the Daily Nation. President Uhuru Kenyatta and First Lady Margaret Kenyatta with Bob Kolimo's wife, Wambui, during a memorial service at the All Saints Cathedral, Nairobi, yesterday. Still on the front page of the Business Daily, Equity deal adds 2,641 new staff to payroll. Equity Group is set to add 2,641 new employees on its payroll with the acquisition of stakes in 4 regional banks from the London-listed Atlas Mara, raising the Kenyan multinational's total staff count to nearly 9,003. Actually 9,000. The Nairobi Securities Exchange-listed banking group is set to buy a 62% stake in Banque Populaire du Rwanda to take full ownership of the Bank ABC Tanzania, Bank ABC Mozambique, Atlas Mara Zambia in a share swap deal valued at $100.4 million. That is 10.7 billion shillings. You can read the rest of the story on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Let's look at what we have on the ticker this morning. 500 million shillings barrier for online casinos. Setting up an online gambling business will cost an investor up to 500 million shillings, and a proposed gaming law that seeks to curb gambling and entry of more players into the market is going to be, there's a big barrier of entry there. And of course, you can follow the story on page 7 of the Business Daily today. The digit that we have today is 112%. That is a percentage rise of sugar imports in the past 5 months. Also, quality arouse threat to free trade area. Good standard differences appearing at protectionist steps will remain to be the elephant in the room on implementation of the pact. You can follow the story on page 16 and 17 of the Business Daily this morning. NSE eyes listing on tax amnesty. Nairobi Securities Exchange is tipping most of the 13 firms on pre-listing training to join the growth and enterprise market segment riding on the proposed 2-year tax amnesty. This story continues on page 20 of the Business Daily this morning. We fly over now to Tanzania and pick the Citizen, and this is what it is holding for us this morning. Tanzania willing to sell maize to Kenya. The government says Tanzania is ready to sell surplus maize to Kenya after the neighboring country announced that it will open a window for duty-free importation of 12.5 million bags. The government said yesterday that it was ready to sell surplus maize to Kenya after the neighboring country announced that it will open a window for duty-free importation of 12.5 million bags. Kenya's treasury said yesterday that the decision was aimed at bridging a shortfall that has seen retail prices jumping to 125 shillings for a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour. This story continues on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Also, Bakhresa in $14 million sugar project deal is another story that you want to follow inside the Citizen in Tanzania. Pedestrians risk life and limb crossing a busy road. This is the standalone picture here on the front page of the Citizen in Tanzania. Also, debt set for auction of property belonging to Chadema's Mboya. Follow the story on page 3 of the Citizen. Mwananchi also is up next, still in Tanzania. The Swahili version of the Citizen, mali za Mboya kupigwa mnada. That is the story or the splash there. Na zile zilizokuwa katika jengo la Bilikanas zitauzwa kesho. Follow the story on page 4 of the Mwananchi in Tanzania. Also, wananchi wa msusia mkutano mkuu wa wilaya wamwacha mezani akihutubia, and this story continues on page 4 of Mwananchi. In Uganda, this is what is happening on the front page of the Daily Monitor. One family to evict 40,000 in land row. One family to evict 40,000 in land row. Municipal offices, factories in 10 villages face eviction. The land in question also houses Nile Breweries Limited. Also, we have Nitel, Pickfair, Pramco, East African Packaging Solutions, Modern Steel and Distillers, among others, in Njeru Municipality. This is a story that you want to follow on page 16 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. And cranes in do or die tie today. This is all about AFCON. You can follow the story on page 56 of the Daily Monitor today. And you can see Uganda Cranes captain and goalkeeper Dennis Onyango. The Cranes face Senegal today. Will they make East Africa happy? Also, government to get 3 trillion shillings from health insurance. The scheme seeks to deduct 4% of the monthly salary of each Ugandan employed in the formal sector. That is happening in Kampala. Follow the story on page 6 of the Daily Monitor. Museveni directs Otafire on UTL. You can follow the story on page 10. And also looking at regional extra, farmers export their sugarcane to Kenya. The sugarcane farmers in Busoga have defied trade minister's order, saying they want better prices for their produce. And the story continues on page 7 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. In Rwanda, this is your splash this morning, looking at the New Times. We will not lose our way again. This is what Kagame is saying. President Paul Kagame on Thursday paid homage to Rwandans who fought for freedom and equal rights for all citizens as the country marked the 25th liberation anniversary. He also called upon all Rwandans to keep working together to sustain the gains made so far, explaining that the main challenge at the moment is to ensure sustainability. You can follow the story on page 5 of the New Times in Rwanda, and this is how it went. President Paul Kagame inspecting a parade mounted by Rwanda Defense Force and Rwanda National Police at Amahoro Stadium in Kigali yesterday. The commander-in-chief is flanked by General Patrick Nyamvumba, the RDF Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police Dan Munyuza, and Brigadier General, that is John Baptist Nguriwasonga, the head of the parade. Also, Agasiro Development Funds hits US $200 million mark. You can follow the story on page 3 of the New Times in Rwanda. Let's just take a brief look at what is happening also on the front page of the East Africa this week. If you've not picked up your copy yet, today is the last day, and this is what has been headlining the front page of the East African this week. Honeymoon is over for Abiy. The Ethiopian reformist leader is grappling with a rogue security sector and flawed federal system. The report continues on page 8 and 9 of the East African this week. There's trouble in Addis, and also Tanzania allows Airtel to defer listing. That is another story that you can follow also inside this East African this week as well. I wanted just to brief you a bit also on what is happening on Sudan. They have a happy medium as far as Sudan is concerned, and the protests which were ongoing, they've come up with a solution I'll just give you those details much later in the course of the program. So maybe there is a solution as far as the fightings are concerned in South Sudan. But the East African is carrying this particular story of the Ethiopia coup, the attempted foiled coup, and you can read all the details on page 8 and 9 of the East African. Shall we now look at the editorial cartoons? And this is what has been drawn by Victor inside the Daily Nation today. This is all about the assassination of Deputy President William Ruto's, the allegations, and the man now who is at the center of it all is Dennis Itumbi. He says and he claims that he has audio and the videos of that particular meeting and the discussion about the assassination, which we say this will be the do or die or the make or break of this particular case. And this is what also has been actually captured by Victor inside the Daily Nation today, the editorial page. Let's see also what we have inside the People Daily, and this is what has been drawn today by Sano. And it's all about the supremacy war between the Senate and also the National Assembly. I leave it for you to decipher. It says the National Assembly versus the Senate. This is what has been drawn by Stano inside the People Daily this morning. Also, the recent copy of the Nairobi Business Monthly is out. This is how it looks. And it's all about the interest cap, rethinking interest rate cap law. The legislation has obviously achieved the opposite of the purpose for which it was intended, bleeding the economy in the process. What is the way forward? What is the way forward? And everyone is eagerly waiting to see what will happen on the September the 1st as far as the interest cap law is concerned. We know there was a court case, and this has also been delayed until then, when we'll know which way to go as far as the interest rates are concerned. So, rethinking interest rate cap law is what is on the front page of the Nairobi Business Monthly. Also, future of payments and path to get there, money and markets, company industry, the resilience of Postal Corporation of Kenya, amidst, of course, the changing and the advent of digitization. Also, executive arena, the transformation of youth enterprise development. Find all about that inside the recent copy of the Nairobi Business Monthly. If you've not captured one, do so. I want to hark you back now to history to show you just how also the Daily Nation looked then. That is in 1963. Today is the 5th. I hope I do have it here with me so that I can show you what or how it looked then. Well, it seems to be missing from. All right. Seems not to be getting it, but I'll try and lift that for you to just show you how that is, or how it looked then. That is in 1964, the Daily Nation from our archives. But remember also, today people are celebrating the 50 years since Tom Mboya was assassinated. I wanted also to just pick up, I don't know where this sometimes get to muddle up here, or I've not really put my ducks in a row as well. Where is it? Can I see it? Yeah, there we go. And this is Tom Mboya with Pamela Mboya, and we have here as well Jomo Kenyatta and the First Lady Mama Ngine as well. I cannot remember this gentleman. Maybe you can actually refresh my memory. My panelist, eh? Njoroge Mungai. What was Njoroge Mungai then? This is Dr. Gituro who's speaking right now. Foreign Affairs. He was in Foreign Affairs, right? Yeah. Ah, okay. And this particular occasion, let me try and remember what it was. But this is in light of celebrating, of course, Tom Mboya, 50 years since his assassination. They also, as I've mentioned, there will be a serialization of a book in the Daily Nation as they promised. You can also pick up a copy of that to just remember the life of Tom Mboya. Gituro, if you remember the Tom Mboya, what really comes to mind?
Good economist.
Good economist.
Yeah.
Yes. A fearless man.
A fearless man?
Yeah.
Right, that is Dr. Rachel Gesame speaking. Martin
Olo?
He's
a good politician.
A good politician. Let's hear from Dominic Mwenja. Tom Mboya.
He was a thoughtful, deliberate individual.
Honest man.
He's an
Honest man. Honest man.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right, there you go. So this is from our archives today. The Daily Nation, I can't show you what is actually the headline, the front page of the Daily Nation today. But we want to buckle down to a discussion this morning with our panelists. They were here last week, and some of them are not here. But of course, we'll tell you who is joining us as well to continue that conversation. It's about leadership in universities. Leadership in universities. And a lot has been happening as far as leadership is concerned, meaning, I say, some of the professors that are heading some of these universities should not actually be the pre-serve of professors only. We can get people who are technocrats to run these universities. And of course, during the past decade or so, as I mentioned earlier, Kenya's public university system has experienced very high rates of growth, which have not been accompanied by a commensurate rise in the level of funding. And this growth of universities is the face of budgetary deficits and manpower surpluses, which is largely a product of the insatiable demand for higher and higher levels of education. Now, the government seems to be, or to have exploited such demand and politicized decision-making in the expansion of university education, whose effect appears to be a serious decline in the quality of education in public universities due to an acute shortage of facilities and teaching personnel. Also, the politicization of decision-making reduced the effectiveness of the Commission of University Education, which had been set up with a responsibility to plan the development of university education. Now, there has been little or no research documenting issues in university governance that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities and its impact on the quality of education. Now, this morning, we continue with the discussion. As I mentioned earlier, we endeavor to examine issues in decision-making that contributed to the rapid expansion of universities in the last 1 decade or so. Also, we will consider the role of the Commission for Universities on development of university education. We will examine government-university relations. Also, we'll analyze decision-making and the management of universities to assess some effects of politicized universities. Also, governance will be a topic on the table as well. Last week, I'd introduced to you Dr. Rachel Gesame. We continue with the discussion with her this morning. She is a professor at Catholic University. We do have also Martin Olo, an advocate of the High Court, also a lecturer at the Kenya School of Law. We have Dominic Mwenja, who is the CEO of Mother Hospital, also an academician. He will tell us more of what he has been doing also in the US as far as leading universities there as a vice chancellor is concerned. Also, joining us this morning is Dr. Gituro Wainaina, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Business. Gentlemen and the lady, let's continue with this particular discussion. And if maybe we can just also refresh the viewers on where we were last week. We can play a clip on what we were discussing last week previously on AM Live Leadership Forum.
We are not attracting enough resources for research in this country. The proposals end somewhere.
There is tension between university education for public good and university education for private good.
One of my biggest concerns is I think that the leaders we have at the university currently are because of a mix of two things, because of existential circumstances and because of the obtaining environment, turned into manual administrators. Administrators that focus on pushing paper, ticking boxes, and not on transformation.
If you've done a good job, why would you be fighting to be reappointed? It follows that the job should be able to just come because people are saying, hey, you've done so well, we want to give you another. But what does it mean to do so well? Again, that is the other thing that we need to look at. Doing so well is not manufacturing students. It's leading, making the university go to the place that you want to be.
If the economy is not producing enough jobs to absorb these young people, then we as a society, we have to ask ourselves, is the ecosystem that is around our education system supporting what is needed in the marketplace so that when these young people get out, they can play an active role in the development of this country?
Change the law if necessary, make university a place for business development, yes, for learning, yes, for research, yes, but the leadership of university does not necessarily have to reflect the academic side of it. It must reflect somebody who offers leadership, somebody who knows what the market wants, and somebody who can take these universities to the next level.
Just to give you an inkling of what the discussion was last week, and we continue with it this morning. Remember also you can hit us on Twitter. AMLiveNTV is our Twitter handle. AMLiveNTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS portal. Let's get to drive the show together. Also, you can share this moment so that we can actually get your views or your questions as well, and throw them to our panelists who are here to tell us more of how we can take this country forward as far as university education is concerned. So we left a lot of loose ends last week, and we decided, why can't we continue with this particular conversation this week? And Dr. Gituro Wanaina, at least you've gotten a snippet of what really happened last week, so we can continue on the same pace. But a lot has been happening. When we spoke last, of course, we know also there was a change of management at the University of Nairobi. So we know that Professor Peter Mbithi is no more as the Vice Chancellor. The decision that was made by the University Council, that was last week. Maybe we can begin from that point. What was really happening at the University of Nairobi? Or that's a very controversial topic to start with.
No, I work there, and perhaps I think it's more to do with the current, the current acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaac Beche. But for Professor Mbithi, his contract is expiring in January.
Is expiring in January?
Yes, I think 5 years tenure. So probably
But you sent him on early leave?
The council did. And I think what, and I think here is a very important point, that that's not something, if a job, doing it well, I don't think that should be a worry at all. If I was in his position and have done a fantastic job, I would apply for it. But I think he also need to be realistic and lead the science. In my experience as a business student and a business scholar, it's rarely I've seen a case like that when the board, even corporate world, tells you take early leave. So there is also a message there. And I think it's coming from a few things when you look at that institution. And it has come up through the staff union. There are things perhaps we could have done differently. There are things that university is known for. And I think, as my brother here pointed out, the challenge with the industry, the challenge with what kind of education you're providing, is what the Mwananchi is looking for. And I think if a university cannot provide that, then it has no business being funded by public funds. I think there are issues of, it's probably not even Nairobi, there are issues what I would call financial and human resources. Most of the vice chancellor, 98%, probably they have limited skills in financial management. And what I mean by financial management, I'm stressing even financial investment.
Yes.
When I'm a university and I have a lot of assets, how do I make them productive? How do I make them create wealth? And I think the question here I'm looking for, how do you get a Mugenda or a kind of learning the institution? So along that checklist, I am not quite sure whether the Professor Mbithi, who I know pretty well, I'll probably not be eager in terms of going for it. But I think he has also other opportunities he can pursue. What's good in the academia, we always go back to the classroom. So he still have opportunity to be back at Upper Kabete. But I think what the council did in Nairobi is what the councils in all the universities becoming, not really going for the VC, but they are strategic. They should also be providing parameters, very clear performance targets. You don't fulfill this, I'm sorry, we don't need you. And I think we have to bring this, and I think it's important to have the basic of a CEO of a university. I think it's important to have professorship, because academia have an ego. And you must address that ego. If you don't have a PhD, you don't have, a professorship, you have a lot of problem. Now, let me give you an example of Tom Mboya, which probably most of us don't know. Tom Mboya, when he was Minister for Economic Planning, was invited to the University of Nairobi to give a public lecture Taivaho, when Taivaho was Taivaho. And with his eloquent, very, very knowledgeable person, I think one of the professors in Jenguru, either Ojani or Professor Ominde, the rate, actually said he's not going to introduce somebody without a PhD. So you can imagine you're the guest of honor, you're on the high table, you are the one to talk, and one of the professors say, I'm not going to introduce anybody without a PhD. So you need that level to manage that ego of the academy. However, there are Kenyans who have those professorships, and they're also very good in terms of entrepreneurship. I'm looking for somebody who combines that. George Magoha, who is now the CS for education, had such fantastic opportunity from Joe Anjui, who was the chancellor then. He was told you must go to Stanford for 6 months, learn about financial management, find how to manage. And at the word start, and he was really listening, at the start he didn't like it. But when he came back, he was a transformed man. He said that's the best thing ever happened to him. One, he wanted to go the skills. Secondly, and more importantly, he was being shown that the university can learn without you. I think those are the mistake we have. And probably Professor Billy should have picked that. He's never taken leave. So why have you taken all this? And I think we have a lot of people in this country that if I leave, the institution will collapse.
Right, and also speaking of Tom Mboya, I think was very pivotal also when he made that particular connection where you remember with the JFK University scholarship. Yeah,
fantastic.
What do you normally call it? The JFK, yeah, the airlift, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
When we remember him also 50 years back right now, we can say he's a man who was forward thinking in terms of making sure that we had such leaders who were beneficiary, and they've exceedingly benefited from that particular airlift. That is Wangari Maathai. We had also Professor Julia Ojiambo as well, amongst many. Maybe we can just...
And actually it's interesting, and I think we all appreciate Bob, and God rest his soul. There's a lot of parallelism, actually, when I saw the 50th anniversary for Mboya with Bob. As people say, very ordinary people, not those high flyers in terms of this. But the two guys had a lot in common. When I look at Bob's life and I look at Mboya's life, they touch a lot of Kenyans.
Thank you.
And I remember I was primary school and Tom Mboya has been shot on Mboya Avenue. So I cried. And you can imagine my time that I'm a Kikuyu, but I cried. He was not a Ruo.
Was it on Moy Avenue or the... Or Moy Avenue was then, no, because it's currently Tom Mboya.
It was Government Road.
It was Government Road, yeah.
It was Government Road. And I think those are the readers, those are the people really we are cherish in terms of taking this country forward. And I hope we can leave legacies of those people. And there's a very interesting word which came, Debarl. When you are here learning this program where and you say, I will leave a legacy, it doesn't go like that. It comes when you're dead and gone. You say, yes, he left a legacy. Mboya did, Bob did. And when I look at the institution, for example, when you look at the leadership of the university, what legacy are we leaving in those universities?
Or what legacy are we leaving in those universities as well? Let us see from Martin Olo. Good morning. So a raft of issues also were raised by you last week. And one amongst them is, we discussed also the remitting of statutory funds to the exchequer, which I think also was a ticklish issue in the university or the management of Nairobi University.
Thanks, Debarl. But just to link in from where Professor Wainaina Gituro was, I think it's critical that we begin to appreciate that not everybody, or rather we've seen from the example of Tom Mboya, we've seen from the example of Bob Collymore, that these were successful leaders. These were people who left a legacy, not because they had PhDs, not because they had seen the inside of the university, but because they had natural leadership talent, they were endowed, and they were actually industry leaders, so to speak, both in politics for Tom Mboya and Bob in business and so on. In fact, one of the things that we credit Tom Mboya for, which is something that we must speak on his 50th anniversary, is sessional paper number 1 of 1965. Correct. Well crafted, and is enduring in terms of legacy for establishing the development, the governance, and the policy focus for this country. So you credit him for that. But having said that, again, we come to a point where we are saying, and some friends of mine are agreeing with me even this morning, like Jacob Mudio just texted me and said, look, it's not enough to have academic leaders in the universities. What is important is for us to have a combination. Universities must be led from a business angle. Universities must be led from a leadership, from a focus, from strategy, not just being present, being handpicked, being sourced from peers. You know, what Professor Gituro was saying earlier is the arrogance of academic persons, that if nobody has a PhD, they are not valuable. Yes and no, because there's so many Kenyans today who are so ordinary and who have no PhDs. If anything, they are PhDs of life, but they have not gone through the rigors or testing of academia.
Yeah.
But that's not enough for us to dismiss them. Neither is it enough for us to say that PhD does not matter. It matters. Anybody who has a PhD knows that there's so much rigor, there's so much discipline that you must go through in order for you to attain that. So that is also something we must respect. Having said that, we want to say that the reason why our universities are in the place they are in is because of poor leadership. It's because of lack of business acumen. Because we are approaching these universities from simply an academic perspective and appointing people because they have been around long enough, they have achieved full professorship. Fine. That is an achievement. That is something that they have established themselves around. That's okay. But the knowledge you have is not necessarily relevant to the position that you're now seeking, unless, of course, you can link the two. Because by the time you are rising to be a vice chancellor, it means that you are a business leader. It means you know something about organization development. It means you know something about human resource management. It means that you know something about the balance sheet, about how cash flows are projected, and that you can actually run an institution to the extent that you know what income is, what expenditure is, and you can balance your books.
So you can be financially literate.
Yes,
so
you're financially literate. So it's not a question of just arriving and then running the place and promoting people left, right, and center. Yesterday I saw some university don saying, which is very strange, that universities are very cheap because they only pay 16,000 shillings since wherever. It's true that students have been paid 16,000, but it does not mean that universities have been running on 16,000. It means that the government has been heavily subsidizing universities. So what we need to ask now is that in the absence of increased capitation, in the absence of increased subsidies in the university sector, what should happen? It means that some extra revenue sources have to be identified, up those, either to match what government is giving now or to go up above that so that universities can run at an optimal level.
Thank you very much. Let's say from Rachel Gesami.
Thank you, Debarl, and good morning to my colleagues. I know that we have said it, but I want to say it once again. I would like to take this opportunity to actually pay tribute to Tom Mboya. His family, wherever they are, must know that they are the leader among the family. He really meant something for this country. As a young girl, I looked up to him. I could listen to every word he said. And I can only say that he symbolized something in this country as we were getting our, our independence. May I say that may his legacy on, be able to inspire our young children today. That said, I also want to say something about Paul Colmo. I didn't have an opportunity to tell him. Normally, I don't like to tell people, to say something about people who are passed on. I like to tell them when they are there and possibly even give them flowers when they can smell them. But that didn't happen. So I can only again say that he has joined my mentors like Mata Teresa, Professor Wangali Matai, and now Paul Colmo. Let's come back to higher education. Higher education, in my view, higher education leadership is very multidimensional, as we know. It's very complex. It requires exploration. We should take it through very thin lenses because it is so complex that we can't summarize it in one sitting. A perspective that we should take into account is the intersection of interrelationships in the university education leadership. We have faculty, we have the deans, you know, the deputy vice chancellors, we have communities, the local communities that are around them. Because we agreed last week that university education should focus on research, training, and community service.
Yes.
So communities around these universities matter. Students, local community, athletics, alumni, those who have been out of that school, the parents, the media, the public officials. So it is that broad that you cannot be in that kind of leadership to the vice chancellor alone. So that said, when you look at the global interests, also we should, you know, wonder what is it that we learn from those who have been there 100 years. When you look at inside the university, for those of us who are there, you see departmental heads, deans, and all the you know, the leadership within the university. They are so hijacked, you know, hijacked by the occupational high tempo of let's leave the, you know, that leaves them very little time to actually focus on what they are supposed to do. And what are they supposed to do? To mentor, and to mentor or to be mentors, or to mentor the students. So you find that we are not spending enough time to rethink how to re-engineer education. That's why, for example, you will see a technical university raising so many students in business. That is not market-driven, and that we agreed last year. So that brings me to the point of the curriculum, and that's where we left it last week. For example, I would like to say that the Big Four for this country is not going to be achieved unless we look at the curriculum again. We need to look at vocational training in this country, you know, so that we can fortify the polytechnics. And why do I say this? The polytechnics are important. We need to start bringing up technical people who focus at the middle level. The Big Four has housing. You need plumbers, you need electricians. Where do we train these people? Really, do we have a curriculum where we train these technical people at that level? No, we don't. So we need to fortify our polytechnical level, and we almost killed it, because we even the polytechnics in Nairobi was changed into a university. We don't know whether they train the technical people like the plumbers, the artisans, who are the people who should be taking charge of that level. Healthcare, for example, that being one of the Big Four goal, it can only also happen if we had that vocational training at a level where you get into the wards and you have technical people managing the patients even before the doctors come in to give the technical area that is very, very important. So we need to think carefully about how we deal with the curriculum, and I would like to hear in this debate what is important in that curriculum development. And after it has been developed, what we want to really see in our universities in terms of training. Now, what do we want to see when it comes to when you look at the kind of degrees that we are churning from the universities, and, you know, degrees that actually do not make these children that we are taking through the university employable. Because you find that, you know, like now, the last few days we have been carrying out interviews in our university, and you find that, yes, the person has the papers here, but you can't match the face and the papers. So you start wondering, where did we go wrong as a country when it comes to education?
Right, so just leave it at that, and we will explore deeply on that also along the way. But let's hear from Professor Dominic Mwenje before we take a short break.
Okay. Thank you, Debarl. The discussion that we're having here on our universities, I do believe, and my brother here is right, you don't need necessarily to be a high-flying professor to be a good VC. I've been a VC in the US, and what they look for is business acumen. You have to be a good business person to be able to manage a university. A university is a business, and you have to be business literate in order for you to manage. And these are huge multi-billion shilling institutions that need to be run by somebody who understands how to run business. If you look at a lot of our vice chancellors, and especially for public universities, you put the business tests for first year. Most of them will not actually pass. Professor Wainaina probably knows that. They will not pass probably Economics 101.
Yes.
Accounting 101.
Yeah.
Statistics.
Statistics. and such people have no business running a large institution. We also have to depoliticize the selection of the VCs in this country. Case in point, when my good friend, Professor Airo, was going to Moi University, you saw the politics that engulfed his appointment to a point where competence and merit actually didn't matter. What mattered is, where is this person who is going to be the next VC? Where is he coming from? What is his last name? So we have to look at all those things in totality. And that's why I look at this as an ecosystem. If we ignore one part and emphasize on others, we are doing a disservice to this country. The reason why universities stay open is because they can be able to fund themselves. And good example, when somebody is saying we are paying too low at 16,000, because we are over subsidizing these institutions. Right now, you'll find universities have thousands and thousands of acres of land that are lying idle, and they're still going to the government to beg money, to beg for money.
Yeah.
What are they doing with that land? They have all these resources, but these guys are so busy wanting to buy towers and big buildings in Nairobi. What does that have to do with the creation of knowledge? What does that have to do with the quality of the graduates that are coming out of those universities? What does it have to do with the research output that's coming from these universities? And that's why we have to look at this from as an ecosystem, not just somebody who is going in to run a university. Now, do you need to be a professor to run a university? I honestly think that you don't necessarily need to do that. The academic ego that surrounds our universities also do us a lot of disservice.
Good point to actually just stop you so that now we can pick up on that. Do you need to be a professor for you to head a university? According to Professor Dominic Mboya, he doesn't think that someone needs to actually be a professor to run or be a VC at the university. So what does it really take to be then a VC at the university? That is what we explore this morning. And of course, they're saying you need to have that business acumen for you to be running also these institutions successfully. So we actually explore this and a raft of other issues as far as leadership in universities is concerned. On the other side of a break, also engages on social media, as I mentioned earlier, AM Live NTV's or Twitter handle, AM Live NTV, or profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS bottle. Welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live, and we continue with the conversation on leadership in universities. And I'm holding court this morning with Professor Rachel Gesami. She's a professor of economics at School of Business at and the director Quality Assurance, Catholic University of East Africa. Also, we do have with us Professor Dr. Gituro Wenaina, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Business. We do have with us also Professor Dominic Mwenja, who is the CEO of Mater Hospital and also a former VC at, which university was this in the USA?
California Merrimack University.
San Diego. Yes, former VC. And also we have with us Martin Olo, who is an advocate of the High Court, also a lecturer at the Kenya School of Law. And we continue with the conversation this morning. And we left it at this point where the question about professorship and leadership of these universities, should they go in tandem? Should we have a leader leading these institutions, holding a PhD? Should he be a professor? And that is now the subject of debate that we have with our panelists here. Let's continue with you, Dr. Dominic Mwenja.
But I just want to make sure that we understand. If professorship is the prerequisite you need to run a university, then we have to make sure that we take that person and, like Joe Ajui did, and make sure they have the requisite skills of running an institution as a business. That has to be one of those. There's a reason why our business professors are not the best business people. There's a reason why they are not the richest individuals.
The business professors? Why not? Gituro is just sitting here next to you.
There's a reason why. Because how you approach academia and how you approach the running of a business are totally different.
Yes.
Okay, those are two different models. And therefore, we cannot assume, because of the success in academia, we can also be able to be successful leaders and managers of our institutions.
Yes.
We have to look, that's why I like my friend Marshall Goldsmith usually tells us what got you here won't get you here. What got you here is because you're a good professor and you've done everything that you've done in academia. You've achieved and all those things that you need to achieve. But what will get you here as a successful vice chancellor is not the same that got you here to the professorship. So something has to add, and that something is the literacy in business and management, the leadership, and those that don't have it, honestly, they just go back to school. They acquire the necessary skills of running a business. And therefore, leadership becomes more paramount than the academic achievement of an individual when you're running a very, very large institution like a university. So those things are key, and we have to be able to balance. And that's why with our university councils, when they are interviewing folks to run our universities, they should be looking at both the leadership qualities of the person they want to give that institution to run, the management skills that individual has, because it's all about managing people and resources. Correct. And if you're not able to manage people and resources, then your professorship is not going to help. And therefore, those skills are extremely necessary. And that's why I say we need to depoliticize the selection of our professors, of our VCs.
Right. Let's talk about that politicization, because I think that also has been affecting the leadership in the universities. Correct. And I wonder how actually the handpicking has been. I don't know what criteria or metrics that you normally use so that you can handpick this particular professor to be leading this particular institution. Is it the premise and the preserve of the council?
And I think we need to distinguish something here before we move on. I can be holding a PhD and I'm not a professor. So there's a distinction. And the question we hear, if you can get a professor or a PhD holder who has both, fantastic. But not necessarily being a professor to run an institution. Because from this perspective, and by the way, I think Major is right, if you can't practice it, teach it. So some of us who can't practice, we teach it, business. And I think you're looking at a VC as a CEO.
It's a CEO.
It's a CEO.
Yeah.
And therefore, the technical are there, everything. Because this, and the university has probably two main responsibilities: providing knowledge in teaching and research.
Yeah.
And if this research cannot find space in the Kenyan Mwananchi, if it can't find space in the business, forget it. That's how the business comes in. If this guy cannot have research, and I'm telling you, if you look at the University of Nairobi, the highest concentration of professors is medicine.
Medicine.
Medicine. Why? Their research is so much to the ground. Those guys, they write fantastic papers. You can see their research, what it means to the community. It has a business aspect of it. So I think it's important when you look at that in terms of managing that. And you as a as a CEO, you must, and I remember one time when Magoha came, we told Magoha, we are going to get you golf membership to Muthaiga. Whatever you want. So as you play that golf with Ben Wairegi, as you're making them with Bob.
With the business community.
With the business community.
Yes.
Because it's not just enough, and it's good to have this, but our research, our teaching, our consultancy has something to do with that. Now, coming to the question, it's the biggest challenge we have with this appointment, and I'm so happy now it has gone to Public Service Commission, is the council. That's the biggest challenge we have. Now, we have a very independent Public Service Commission, and I would perhaps suggest strongly, in that Public Service Commission, one of the people interviewing the Vice Chancellor must be people from the business community. Absolutely. Not just the donors. Because that's what will be happening. You go to a council. Invariably, the head of the council, the chairman of the council is actually a professor. I remember with a lot of nostalgia with John Simba, when he was the council chair of the university. Fantastic man. It was like walking on water under him. He was the chairman of the board of UNES. He was the chairman of the council, and you could see the business. Somebody like Masharia of Citizen. He was one time in the council. You could see and I think George Mago had a fantastic council. So I think in terms of the question you're raising, well, like our friend now at Daystar.
Labanayiro.
When he was in Moi, it was rubbish. The way that thing was conducted. And I can tell you also
So you're talking about the politicization that I think was raised also by it is our man syndrome that we want in...
Yeah. The latest appointment in the University of Nairobi of... By the way, this is something I can't understand. How can you have an institution, an academic, or a company you run, and everybody is acting? It actually shows these serious management issues. Yes.
But I think also on that note, there's a bill which has come to the floor of the House that you should not be in an acting capacity for more than 6 months. Because in this country, we've had people who are in an acting capacity for over 5 years.
No. I've been there myself.
You've been there.
I acted for Vision Trade more than whatever. It's in the paper, but in terms of implementation, it's a different ballgame.
You actually were still acting?
I acted for more than 3 years at the Vision 2030.
More than 3 years?
Yes. So what are you saying? 2013. It's there in good in paper, but I think what we need is people of integrity, people who, and I was looking at the most universities to be the best, whatever. It's so pedestrian kind of visions, and you're looking at those people. What do they have integrity? Do they have academic excellence? And my sister is saying how they outreach to the community. But the question you are raising, I think we have to manage that recruitment process, even if we're calling firms who take you even through psychometric tests. Let's go through it. Cambridge, I'm not sure whether it's Cambridge or Oxford, very traditional universities. One of them now have a CEO, the Vice Chancellor, who was a CEO somewhere in New Zealand, because they realized the ball game has changed. And I think that's what he's saying, and I like it. That's the Public Service Commission. And a good thing with Public Service Commission, they can get various people to interview. Who become the next CEO of the university.
All right, so if you have the Public Service Commission, are we also devolving away from politicization, or now that also will be another preserve of politics?
Is it Debarl?
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing that we are doing is that we make decisions without any research and without any policy intentions. So to move the recruitment of vice chancellors from the councils to the Public Service Commission needs to be informed by a certain rationale, which rationale has not been developed. Yeah. It is simply a miscellaneous amendment that went through Parliament with the members of Parliament with their own intentions and have done so. Now, is it going to give us better vice chancellors?
That's a
Absolutely not. I can tell you not. If we had a problem with the councils, at least the councils were many, and there were different players doing different things, and could have been doing it in a crazy way, but that crazy thing could have given us at least one or two. But you have one concentration now in Public Service Commission. They miss it big.
But Martin, I think what you're spot on. But I think when you look at the composition in the Public Service Commission, or who to interview,
Yes.
to be the Vice Chancellor,
Yes.
that's why we can go for it.
But we haven't even thought it out.
Even including a student.
No, but you see, what you're
To
saying,
interview the
what Professor is
prospective.
saying is right. But that's not how the Public Service Commission is constituted today. The commissioners are in place, the chair is in place.
Right.
They have no mechanism, no legal framework requiring them to do that. So what I'm saying is that we should have done that with also a framework and an advisory, so that they do it in that way.
However, what they have, and I had this opportunity, and I remember getting a call when I was in Tel Aviv, Israel, to interview the governor, current governor, and then Margaret Kobia was the chair. And I told them I can't, because allowed. They have opportunities to reconstitute, to bring somebody outside the commissioners who can help in the recruitment.
But the commissioners make the decisions, isn't it? For me, what I'm saying is that let us do everything, even whatever we are talking about here with the universities,
Yes.
let us develop a policy position. Remember, Article 10 of the Constitution requires that we also consult and we be transparent and we be open and make sure that we have something that we can all debate. Like now we're talking, whatever we're saying here is good, but if we move from the frying pan into the fire, we haven't helped it. So we're saying, yes, being a professor is not enough, but that's not even the issue. The issue is that there are some professors who have done well, but the question is, what has made them do well? That is the kind of thing we need to clone. And for sure, when you read Professor Magoha's book, he is very categorical that he took that Kennedy time for him to actually understand what the job was. And now he's a cabinet secretary. I'm not sure he needs another. Maybe he needs another course. He needs another course.
A refresher.
At least it helps him speak there. Because but the key issue is that in this country we make mistakes, and the mistakes we make are we jump from the frying pan to the fire. We make decisions without research, and we make decisions without policy and a framework. So if we are going to do something and we do it in government, why do we have a place called Kenya School of Government? Kenya School of Government is an admission by government that in order for you to hone your skills in government,
Correct.
you need to be continuously trained, and you need to be taken through various hierarchy, various programs, and that is when now you can rise to the top of this. So that by the time you are the head of public service, my friend, you are the finest, but not today.
Not today, but you remember
there now.
you remember the chair of Kenya School of Government is here.
I agree with my colleague here. You
Yes,
know,
Rachel.
Career progression is important. And it is true, what we are saying here is true in all professions. In the academia, there is a historical background where people used to say, publish or perish. You had to be able to publish, to be able to progress within the academic radar. That should also happen in, not necessarily publishing, but that school of business, of government we are talking about. We were civil servants, for example, and we went through school of government. It was called what? Kenya Institute of Administration, and every civil servant, I remember, those days went through there. But then we need to be careful. Where do we start to develop leaders who share values? At whatever level, who share same values, respect, need for community, for whatever they are doing, the professional development that needs to go into that area that we are talking about, and to bring into focus the right stewardship of any institution that they are reading, because it takes a team to manage. Like when you look at the universities, seriously, for those of us who are in, we walk through that campus. You need your coordinator, your exam coordinator. You need the students to be there, even to be able to sit there and listen to what everybody is saying. It takes so much to manage those resources, to manage the human resources itself, and then to couple it up with the shortage of the capital, the amount that goes into managing a university. So I can only say that as far as Kenya is concerned, we have got enough human capital. And that one has been developed through this university, whether it is right or not. I mean, whether they are the right people or not, we need to start understanding where do we start developing readers Not people who have degrees or people who have got diplomas, or where do we start to develop leaders that are share, that have a vision, that are able to know, that stewardship is important. Now, I have no problem with the vice chancellors, especially in private. They are doing their bit with the difficulties they have. In public, there is politics, a lot of it. And that's where we need to start thinking about, why do we always probably, I would want to hire the person I know. So I go, if I'm in the Ministry of Education and I want council chairman, I will just take my friends and put them there. Those are the things we want to discourage. The university, the vice chancellors are interviewed. So whoever the panelists that are interviewing them know that this person can deal with this. So we need to remove that politics from there. Don't take your kin. Don't take the person you know. Take the skills that you can count on. And then we move forward. Otherwise, it's a very complex issue. It's a serious, dimensional, aspect that we need to share with a lot of care. And I will stop there for now.
Right. Thank you.
I think Debarl and she's right. In our universities, we need more visionaries than folks who will come and occupy as a space because they have a title. That's one.
No, not just a space. 2 floors.
2 floors.
2 floors. Are you jealous?
2 floors. But what you see, universities are supposed to be that house up the hill where creativity and innovation comes from. That's where we have visionaries who can see 20 years ahead and be able to look at what we can do today to achieve that which we can see. Where we are today, we are a 4th industrial revolution.
Yes, really.
We are talking about artificial intelligence and the blurring of space between all these other cool and Internet of Things that we are looking at. That's where universities should be going today. We should be talking about biotechnology and the things that we are doing to make sure that the lives of our people are made better by the researches that we do in our universities. But when you see a VC, and most VCs are more concerned with the management of the resources of the university than creating a vision that will create wealth, knowledge, and innovation for this country. That's what we need to start looking at. Look, long term, you had Vision 2030 for the last 4 or 5 years. And the Vision 2030, it was beautiful, beautiful document, beautiful way of looking at where this country should have been or should be 30 years from now. But our university in tandem with where that is headed. That's the question. And that's what we should be looking at.
And rhetoric is a very important point. Let's not lose.
Let him finish. Are you done?
Okay.
Okay, for that part, yes. Yeah. So when we look at the leaders who are going to lead our universities, one of the things that we're going to need to look at are these people visionaries that can be able to see where this country and this world is headed. When you have someone who is leading an institution like the University of Nairobi, you saw the fights at the University of Nairobi 5 years ago.
Or it's in court.
Or it's still in court. And it's all about the management of the not even the management, it's about the control of the resources of the institution. Instead of looking at what contribution are we making to the society and what we as an institution, and if we are not careful, the University of Nairobi might be one of the largest dinosaurs that in academia that we might have in the next 5 years. Professor Inea is there, and I'm hoping that the visionaries that are within the university system itself can see where we need to go so that they solve societal problems, they bring innovations. Two days ago, I was with Dr. Kamau at, actually the day before yesterday, at Gearbox. The innovation and the innovation center, it's an incubation center in
Fab Lab guy.
They are doing wonderful job. When Dr. Kamau was at the University of Nairobi, he tried to do all these things that he's doing at Gearbox, but he couldn't do it. But outside of the institution, he's able to do wonderful things. I spent a good afternoon.
That's why he resigned.
Absolutely.
He left the University of Nairobi. He was
frustration.
He was not moving, yes.
And here is a guy who has all these innovative and creative juice, and it won't do good for this country. Tony Blair was there. I was the Tony Blair there on 2 days ago.
Yes.
The day before yesterday.
With the ITC.
With Joe Musharo.
Yes.
It was myself, Joe Musharo, KCB Foundation, and Tony Blair's team. Now, what Tony Blair was telling us is, and which is very true, the technology gap between the advanced countries and the developing countries is so short now, it's so small, because the diffusion of technology and knowledge is not the way it was 30 years ago. It would take us a very short period of time as a country to take off technologically and in terms of innovation. But there has to be leadership from both our institutions, from government, and it has to be deliberate and methodical if it's going to make a difference.
Thank you. Dr. Kituro?
Yes, I was saying, I think intellectual is a very important point. I think to me, managing the university is a very simple responsibility. You have the best brains you can get. If you can manage them well, God knows where you can go. And let me give you an example. If you look at the University of Nairobi, and I said this statement when I was talking to chairmen of council and vice chancellors, probably in the next 5 years, not 3, should be giving money to the exchequer.
You should.
Actually. It should. Tell me, Debarl, and probably put the business aspect, the kind of asset this university, I call them liabilities now.
Yeah, that is a question we were asking last time.
Because if you, it's actually over 12 billion worth.
12 billion worth
of land. I'm telling you, give 5 acres at Inea Center. 5 acres of land. 5 acres in Kabete.
Yes.
Now, if you turn that, and you just go through the law is here, February 2013, we have a PPP, public-private partnership. Menja comes there, he says, I don't have the cash, but I have the land. University of Dar es Salaam have the Mirimani City. It's actually at the PPP. And I can within, let me give you a simple example. That 10 acres facing Lemuru Golf Club, you can build the best conference facility you can ever do. Don't learn it. You'll be getting your check at the end of the month.
But
I'm calling for that conference. I say in the afternoon you have a round of golf.
You know what is amazing is that you have these good ideas, but you're telling us here on this table.
No,
just a moment. Why can these ideas not be put to the council of the university?
I'll tell you why, Debarl.
Has he finished?
Those of us with ideas have no power, and those in power have no ideas.
Can I disclose
I
here?
don't know whether
Please. Okay, let's get a disclosure. You disclose, Kituro.
Can I
Please,
disclose
yes.
here? And I think if they are listening, they can actually say yes. I've sat with the vice chancellor.
The immediate former.
Yes, and Professor Bidi, Professor Isaac Beche.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Beche, we have come a long way, when I was the chairman of the department at the University of Nairobi. And I shared the same. I told them, I've just come from the Vision 2030. If you want my connection to government through the PPE unit, we can do it. That's almost 3 months or 4 months ago. I have given my students to do 15 years projection of that piece of land in
Kabete.
No, in Kabete, near St. Paul's University.
Yes.
And I tell you, in the 3rd year, we are breaking even. And I share. These are the results.
I think we are actually belly aching about lack of funds.
So that's
we have resources we're not utilizing.
I was called and saying, no, Inea, you're not. This is not right. Why are you telling this Nairobi University should look this idea that we are getting money from the exchequer? We should get it off our mind.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because if I was in exchequer today, and I say this without contradiction at all, I'll find more the basic education because of the social returns.
This is the idea we were actually talking last time, Martin, that yes, even that particular land in Kabete, you can actually produce 20,000 liters of milk every day in this country and be a supplier to the dairy board.
Debarl,
yes.
Let me just modify what Professor Inea is saying. Basically, universities must exist because they have a funding base. And before you even start giving out the funds to exchequer, universities all over the world build endowment funds.
They do.
And it's out of endowment funds that they fund their programs. Now, with all the assets we are talking about, universities in this country, none of the universities, not including the oldest, the University of Nairobi, has an endowment fund worth talking about. Yet universities world over exist because of the endowment. And how do you raise endowment? You raise endowment through research grants. You raise endowment through business assets, that alumni. And then once you build the endowment fund, you spend just a small part of it in terms of your administration, and the rest you do other programs around it. Now, the biggest foundations in this country, the Ford Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation and others, are simply as a result of some investment and a corpus of that investment being reinvested and only a portion of it being used to go on. So for my case, this country must begin to look at the future of universities by first of all talking about endowment funds. Then after that, their resources can go anywhere, including giving support to research and innovation, wherever it is, supporting the state to do things that are relevant, not just to give them money so that they can go and put it down a hole, but put it so that it can go to do more research about children, more research about health. Today we are talking about cancer, thanks to the latest casualties. But you see, what effort? Okay, we talk hard about it, but what effort, what research, what resources are we generating internally to address ourselves to what now is actually a national problem? So that if we had universities that are thinking and actually using the market, using the business space to say, look, business, you are hurting because of diseases, you are hurting because of this cancer. Everybody else will understand this. The Safaricom of this world now today, and even breweries and others will say, hey, wait a minute, we felt it. Here is a portion of our profits. Please put it more on research. So basically, through research alone, before we even go to assets, universities can generate the resources that they require. The problem we have, and I agree with them, that those who have positions don't have the thinking. Those who have the thinking are outside. many of these guys take a walk. Like Professor Inea went to spend time in Vision 2030, spent time in other things, and then went back to academia. Now he's writing for the pleasure. He has made money. He's not poor, by the way. I can tell you. He's not poor. And he has made some money out there. But he's now back to just teaching and
he earned it. He earned it.
At the chairman of a Kenya School of Government, PS.
Yes.
Okay, let's see from Barreto.
Okay, the departure. You know, we have talked about the endowment fund. We did it last week, and we were saying we need, as universities, we need to be felt at the policy level, at the government level. And when you see a country that doesn't invest in research, then obviously there is no vision in what we are doing.
Yes.
Now, rigorous research requires time, and it requires those who have done enough training in that area to be able to do that training. Hence, the universities to be able to translate that research into a policy statement, backed by the empirical data or empirical results that you have been able to get to be able to reach the conclusions of that research. Needs support. Now you find that we don't do research. We say, okay, we have the big four. Healthcare, for example, if we bring research into healthcare. If we don't, invest in research in the health sector, how do we move forward with the new, diseases that are breaking left, right, and center? We just have the traditional way of running a health system. So, yes, the universities have to wake up and start coming up with serious endowment plans. Endowment plans to manage, to run the affairs of the university, and endowment plans to actually support the needy students that you find are languishing in the university. They can't even finish because they didn't get anybody to support them. Their parents can't be able to support them. So there is a vacuum somewhere, and we need to fill it. Research is an area that, is so critical, but I don't know where in Kenya we talk of research, other than the individual institutions who try to say, okay, let's do research in this and this. The research I see alive in this country is, you have a thesis, you must publish before you can graduate. That is not enough. We need to take it to a level.
Let's not talk about publishing because we have been taking a hell of one.
No, but
were they 118th PhDs?
No, but a child cannot publish. These days we have got online journals. The students cannot graduate unless they have put a paper there. If we call that research, we are lying to ourselves. So let's start having a platform where we say research is important. Let's have the funds here to be able to do this research and in this area.
I don't believe in funds. I don't believe that the money is the first thing. Tell me what you want to do. Yeah. In most cases, you actually find people saying very strongly, "I have no money."
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in the NGO world, in care. I went to Garissa, and this community was, there is no money. And I asked them to do what? We sat for 2 days. We came with what need to be done. And I think we need to move that perspective. And I'm telling you, and I appreciate what Prof is saying here, they were Kamau's place. Yeah? Kamau will get whatever funding he wants because there's something good he did.
Yes.
Kamau with Fab Lab, he connected this university in Nairobi, the people in India, they had about 500 were connected. And you could see where he was moving. And I think what you do is what will make people come. And they'll fund you without even asking. I do remember 2000, the meeting in Dakar about education. The big five, UNICEF, World Bank, they say, money is not a problem, but come with credible projects. Money follows good projects.
Thank you.
Okay,
Right.
now, but answer me a question. Now, School of Government, is it doing research? Is there an agenda?
Is it meant to do the research?
My view is
Yeah, what I'm following up is, where do you start?
Let me tell you that. My view is this, and I'll say, this Kenya School of Government,
Yeah.
its core business is skills enhancement.
Yes.
If they want research, I can do contract research. I'll call Prof. Yeah? You do the research, I'll get the whatever the research come. Yeah. Then I work on the policy. They are very keen in policy. And I agree with you. If you get good informatics, it will inform your policy, it will inform our lives. So in terms of looking at Kenya School of Government, and it's something I'm dealing with right now as we talk, I think there are better institutions like Kemri, there are better institutions like Kipra, there are better institutions like Nairobi, but you go into partnership.
Yeah.
And that's why I see it. If I see Kenya School of Government today, and it's so, if I'm with my friends at KIA, what is it now? Like, we haven't rebranded, and we need to be seen as Kenya School of Government, like Kennedy School of Government, Lincoln U School of Government, producing the best technocrats.
Thank you.
Right. This university.
Okay, I think also we've hovered so much on the research bit, but utilizing the resources, we need to just finalize on it. You're talking of PPP. The private universities have done this. It's a pity that we don't have any represented here today. Dr. Ngaruya was here last week, but he couldn't make it as well. But I gave an example of even KCA University on what they're doing with their resources. You have land. And also we have this public university saying that accommodation has been an issue. We cannot really, take in so much, students because of accommodation. The PPP they've done is you have an extensive, a tract of land, like what we do have in Kabete. Why can't you partner with, some real estate, property development, institutions to actually put up, some of the facilities that you need for accommodation within this particular land.
I think to me,
and then you lease, like the way they've, I know KC University has done this with Kwetu, so you lease a land, and for a while then they take the initiative of developing and have accommodations for the students. But that has not been the case.
I think it's a question of the exchequer will provide.
The exchequer will provide.
And the moment I start cutting us on the exchequer, you wake up.
Thank you. Dr. Dominic.
I was just going to say that over-reliance on money coming from government
has to stop.
Has to stop. Our leaders in universities have to be creative. They have all these resources that are just sitting there. They are not exploiting, and that goes to the leadership of the university itself.
For example, why should a university build hostels? Why can't you, as an entrepreneur, I give you the specs?
That's what I'm asking.
The student?
That's what I'm asking.
That's what I would have done actually in terms of the host. I have no responsibility, but I have a responsibility. Like most of us who went out to study there, we were given one room for reading. It's very clear what you can, if you put a certain gadget which requires a lot of power, it cuts off. But the specs were very clear. As much as I know the students are important, because in this country we have has to do different. They are kids from poor families, so they need to be housed. So you get a small, or rather a limited amount for those kind of students. But the others, less than a kilometer, you have accommodation, which is done by the private sector. But you go in and go see in the private sector, the studies of room you are looking for, and what kind of service they provide them.
Thank you.
And you take that off your balance sheet. If I probably look at that.
Right, thank you.
Debarl, there are three things. One, we are saying the thinking is the problem, because if you can't think, you can't achieve. So if you don't have that business thinking or that business thought process, you'll not get there. But there is something also that is true. Module 2 was an alternative income generation for universities. The truth of the matter is, none of any of these universities has ever declared Module 2 as part of its income to the extent of showing Exchequer what it is they have made, and therefore whether or not the Exchequer should reduce. The battle between the Treasury and the universities has remained the same. Whenever the universities are asked to account for Module 2, they sink their heads in the ground and they say, that is our money, don't tell us. What is the effect of it? The effect of it is the University of Nairobi is the biggest private university, because it is using public resources, publicly paid teachers, to teach privately recruited students, and the money disappears. And so you can say of a number of other universities. It disappears because it never comes into the books. It never reflects to Treasury. What is reflected to Treasury? You gave us capitation X yesterday, increase it to this, or at least maintain it at that level. So what you're also saying is that even when you have this thinking, it must be accompanied with accountability, transparency, and integrity. Because again, it's a collapse of integrity.
Absolutely.
It's a collapse of our system that is taking us where we're
Absolutely.
going. And the third issue really is that, yes, there have been attempts at these PPPs. I remember there was a PPP being planned around hostels in Kenyatta University. Between the funders and the university and the authorities, the PPP, there's a PPP, Engineer Kamau and others. After the contract was signed, it took more than 3-4 years. I don't even think right now that program has been put on the ground.
There's a new director now.
So that is also another thing, a tripping wire when it comes to management of universities. The over-regulation. You're over-regulated. Also, to just purchase something, like a computer, that will take almost 1 year for you actually to get the contract.
No. Those are vested interests.
Vested interests.
Yes.
Not regulation.
I was in the vision. We used to procure this thing in a week. Just do a market survey. This biro is 20 shillings. Put it in the machine there. If you are going to procure and you put it 100 shillings, it won't work. I don't have to go to the market. Simple. There is off-the-shelf program we can do that. If you want to buy a laptop from the nation, this afternoon we'll be having it. And you know what? You have the best and the good quality and good price. Why? Because you have no interest. I'll give you an example. I was in government, and a laptop, I was being sold at 270,000, a laptop. I got the specs. I asked my children, my boys now, men, go and do the 3 quotations. It came to 90,000. I went to the PS and I told Sabiri then, I told him, no, I can't buy this 270, it's 90. Why? In government we take long to pay.
Yeah.
But 3 times?
3 times long to pay. So
I'm telling you the bar. 3 days. In 3 days I was called by somebody. I remember I was opening the gate. So I picked the cell phone and asked Wanena, why are you frustrating this business, this procurement? I was like, who are you? Then there was no true Cora or whatever. So I told my wife, I said, what I did, I told the PS, take the laptop, I'll buy.
It is called corruption.
Pure corruption.
And in 3 months, it will be issues of integrity in this university.
Okay, let's wind up on the research. We go to now the CBC, which is also very important, and committed back to the development. And maybe just to also, as a segue to our discussion, yesterday was something which was happening. The task force that is for this particular CBC was being launched by Professor Magoha. If we may just turn to my camera 7 there.
Was it
for that? It was actually yesterday. And I just want to just give you a bite there, where a 26-member team led by Fatuma Shege has 1 year to review literature and identify international best practices with a view to preparing a comprehensive report on the competency-based curriculum. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, who inaugurated the task force, challenged the team to set difficult targets for themselves in order to achieve more. Magoha maintained that CBC must succeed at whatever cost. Just take a listen to what they said.
The anxiety that we are seeing in the nation, I believe, and I believe that this team is aware, it's an anxiety because of the interest that every stakeholder has in the education system and in the education of their children.
You don't need to go struggling looking for data, information. This is the team whose job is to mind, go deep, and do research for you at the back room.
This is going to be a challenging task because as we move along, we have to keep on investing both our brain power, human resource capacity, and finances. And I would want you to remember the child. Anytime you have doubts in your mind, remember that child that is somewhere in the gutter without a parent and without anybody to help except you yourself.
So they have to succeed at whatever cost, right? And I just want to throw this to a panelist. Succeed at whatever cost. So this CBC is, the trainer is already, you know, the horse has bolted, yeah?
What we've done, we've decided we want a CBC, and we are now working backwards to justify it. Now, that may be wisdom, but it may also be lack of it. Because what is the difficulty in implementing Article 10? Article 10 simply says that whenever we want to engage, or whenever the state wants to engage on an issue, it has to subject it to public participation, it has to be transparent about it, it has to be accountable about it. And what an easier job if only you started by saying, we are not happy with 844, what should we do about it? It's a question you posed. And then we work from there to find ways in which we can change it and have whatever we call a CBC or whatever else comes out of it. But we have been at it, and Professor here was part of the team that worked together with Laban Nairo and others. We've been at this thing for a while. It's not just yesterday. Now we have another task force, and after this task force, we will have another task force. So the rate at which we are going is that we want to get where we want to go, but we must justify how we get there because we already determined where we are going.
But for the sake of continuity, why didn't we just continue with the task force that was there? Or there was a time limit?
I think we have to distinguish here, and I was in the steering committee for Professor, I think it was Odhiambo, can't remember his name.
Douglas Odhiambo.
Douglas, yeah?
Yes.
I was in that task team, and I thank God I was even the Courage and all those ones, and even the earlier one. What we have done, and I think Martin, perhaps, it went through the participation. People went over the country.
You're looking at 844, or in this one?
The new one, the one we are going into. And I think what Fatuma is coming in, and I wish her all the best, is the implementation part of it. And I think we have to distinguish. One of the biggest challenges we have in this country is taking that level of implementation. Anything you want to look at, we have a big gap in terms of implementation. So I think they are looking at the modalities. I think George Magoha, the CS, is a very forceful man. I probably will not say at any cost. I would say it's good to implement CBC, which I like calling talent-based curriculum, because it recognizes the talent each one of us in this country has. There is no child in this country who doesn't have a talent. This is what the approach is all about. It's actually giving that kid an opportunity to be what you and I are today.
Thank you. Rachel.
For me, okay, I will start by wondering why you need one task force to come up with, you know, the curriculum, and then you tell them now, let's get a different task
for the implementation.
To implement this.
That's what I was asking, the continuity.
Yes.
Why were you barred by a term limit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so it is... my question still, you know, is how do we develop good leaders? Because it's not only the universities that we are now almost blind. It is even in the whole sector, in the whole government, the whole everywhere. If you can answer me that, why we need a task force to implement another task force's work, then we can start talking. That said,
you as a panelist should be telling us.
No, I don't have the answer, and okay, I never pretend to know everything. The truth of the matter is, we need to start creating agendas and creating leadership that has that vision that we talked about earlier. So this defeats my reasoning. I don't know why we are doing that. But if you look back again, there's a time we had a task force led by Busire. What was that?
Led by?
The Goldenberg?
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yeah.
Yani already you have lost so much money. And then you take another task force which takes almost 5 years
to chase the money.
To chase the money. You know, we are just not cutting it. As a country, as the entire leadership, we need to start up there until down here.
But, but critically, I also don't want us to lose the debate on also the mechanics about the CBC and the implementation of it. The critical question will be that now we have this particular task force. We can see still looking at the whole continuum. At the end of it is about the higher education, because you're channeling all these people who will come to you, you know, who are the professors and the doctors to teach them as well. But you are still in the archaic curriculum.
Yeah.
This CBC is not in tandem with what the higher education is actually having also as well. It still will come with the same concepts that Gituro has taught over the years. It's not changed so much. So how will it help at the end of the day? Because you're starting from here. It's like I'm buying a new suit and I'm just putting on the coat, but wearing the old trousers as well.
You have a very nice suit.
I have a very nice suit. Thank you.
I think, Debarl, I was part of the National Steering Committee.
Just a moment, Rachel, you finished.
Just to finish.
Yes, just
thank
finish.
you. The idea of coming up with this curriculum is important, and it is the process that we are taking it that we need to look at. You know, a lot of countries have changed their curriculum for the higher education or lower education, or even a primary level. The 844 that we had was changed. You remember when the 844 was changed?
Yes.
When during Moi's time. If it is time now for us, and I believe it is time for us now to change the curriculum.
Yes.
But we need to look at the processes. And why do I want us to look at the processes? I want us to look at the quality of the curriculum that we are developing now. And for me, the sequencing of how we do it is important. Sequencing in the sense that we need to know when we are actually implementing it, and how we are crossing the one that we have been having. Yeah,
right.
That is where I would like to stop for now.
Right, let's hear from Dominic.
Debarl, I was part of that, the steering committee for the last 3 years. The one that went through the entire CBC.
Yeah, that's why we were with you, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And we went through the public participation. We talked to people across the whole country. We met, we talked, we discussed, but there are some gaps that are still there. And if you read Professor Airo's report that was commissioned by Amina Mohammed, he identified those gaps. And I strongly believe that those gaps are the gaps we should have addressed instead of forming a new task force. We look at what Professor Airo, because Professor Airo was Professor Kane, all of us were part of that group that looked at CBC. Now, the gaps that were identified by Airo, which got Amina in trouble when she went in front of the Senate, those gaps should have been addressed. And they are real gaps, and they are there. For example, now I see Professor Magoy, we talk about exams, we talk about the training of the teachers, we are talking about the resources. Then there is one fundamental thing that we kept on asking. We have primary 1 through primary 8 right now. We have 8 classes.
Correct.
We are cutting 2 classes out of primary school. That means in every primary school, we're going to have 2 extra classes. Then we have 4 classes in every secondary school, and we are cutting it to 1. So you have 3 years in between of grade 7, 8, and 9. The question we've been asking, and we've not had any answer from government or from anybody else, even as a steering committee.
Yes.
What do we do with these children in lower secondary, in grade 7, 8, and 9? Do we reside them in the primary schools? Do we reside them in high schools? And when are we going to start building those classrooms that is going to acquire, because every high school will have 1 extra class. So do we need to build 2 extra classes in the secondary school so we can absorb the lower secondary? Or do we need to convert our primary schools into also taking the lower secondary schools? Those are fundamental resource-based questions that needed to be answered. Because in the absence of that, we have 1.3 million children that are going through the system, and by the time they hit grade 6, they go to grade 7, 8, and 9, we have no idea where these children are going to go. So Fatuma, Professor Fatuma and the team now have a lot of work to do in terms of implementation of this program. I believe they need to look at Professor Airo's findings so that they look at the gaps that were identified, the gaps that we knew as a committee were there. Those gaps need to be identified. Once they are identified, then the resources need to be made available. There are a lot of things, and when you're changing the entire education system, there are a lot of moving parts, and you have to look at it as an ecosystem. I've seen people calling it 263333. When did we decide to move universities from 4 years to 3 years? What are the implications? Have we even looked at that?
Yes.
And you are the University of Nairobi. Are you looking
That's
at
the
changing
sequence I was talking
from 4 years to 3 years? What are the implications of that?
We can't even manage what we have. So
Absolutely.
I don't know what happened.
Then the other thing that we and I kept on asking this question. We have these kids that are moving to Saturday 6. By Saturday 7, those children will be going to secondary school. And traditionally, our secondary schools are taught by university graduates, trained graduates.
Correct.
So the question is, have we started preparing the University of Nairobi School of Education, Kenyatta, and other universities to train teachers for 100% transition of all these children that are moving into grade 6, 7, and 8? That should have started maybe 2 years ago or even 3 years ago. So in the absence of looking at the entire ecosystem, we're going to create a lot of gaps.
That is the sequencing I was talking about.
Right, Martin.
The sequencing, so that the entire chain is thought through.
Yeah, it is seamless.
Yes.
There will be a bottleneck at the universities.
Yeah. And Debarl and the professors are here. These are the fundamental issues in terms of any policy, any changes. You must think through the policy, think through the policy implications, and think through the strategic issues that are required for its implementation. So when I say that we still are having the wrong side of the stick, he's just confirmed it. Before you begin to go into implementation, think through the entire process up to the university level. We are now roping in universities after the fact. The train has left the station. We are finding out, so where is the next station after Makindu? We don't have it built up. So, and the train has left the station.
Yes.
Do we stop the train in the middle, or what do we do about it? Now, we can avoid this kind of things because we have time as a people and as a government. There's nobody who is chasing us. There's nobody who was putting us under pressure to review our 844. We decided, or we thought that time had come. So how to do it is going back to our sessional paper number 1 of 1965. What is it we want to do? What kind of graduates do we want to produce? What market are we preparing for?
Maybe Amina had a valid point that yes, we are not really prepared for implementation of CBC.
No, she was right.
Yeah, then it costed a political, I don't know. Yeah,
because you see, we've decided it must be implemented, and nobody's going to tell us anything else, which is not the case.
I think there's something else, perhaps, if you look at implementation something, you can't be 100% to implement something. I'll give you an example. So the whole concept put in the deep end, why do I back? And I don't believe in 844 or whatever. I don't believe in that. What is important, and I think Rachel was bringing up, what is inside the basket? The curriculum. We can have 844, we can have the other one, but what is inside the basket is what matters. And I think, and you are within that team, I think if you look at the CBC, it's more based to the basic education. There was silence in terms of the higher education. But I think what Martin is saying, we need to look back and then see a continuum. And that continuum should also have, and I keep saying this, the industry should drive what we teach in primary school. And continue. What we teach primary inform the secondary. What is it secondary inform the university. If we don't have that continuum, probably at the end of the day, we have a graduate who cannot feed back to the community.
Precisely. And that's why I'm saying the entry behavior at each level, we need the continuum. We have to pay attention to that. If we don't pay attention to that, we're going to have kids exiting grade 12 and joining our universities, and we have no idea what they have learned.
Thank you. Right, let's leave it at that a bit and also read some of your tweets which are here a bit so that we can see also what our viewers are saying. We have John Gidanga saying the current decline in university education standards can as well be attributed to sloppy leadership by the incumbent vice chancellors akin to many other state institutions all over this country. Also, we have James Biu Kungu saying, I disagree with Professor Mwenja that universities should not be looked as a money-making business. The role of a public university is to generate knowledge, train and give service to society. University exists to solve the challenges in the society. We need academia to lead universities. Also, we have Dr. Andrew Sule saying the problem in our universities now is that those who have the positions don't have the thinking, and those who have the thinking don't have the positions. Reasons don't have quality research, especially in health sector. I think echoing also what Martin was saying. And this is Dr. James Omwenga saying the late Bob Coleman never went to any university but was the best CEO. The very many degrees don't qualify one to be a good leader. We have also Buta Morocco saying, I've always believed in the same for hospitals. Hire leaders to run like it's a private company. The professor and doctors for hospitals in most cases lack managerial and leadership skills as they are into their academic theories as well. We have also Frank saying this is talking about the assassination of Tom Mboya. We'll come to that later. We showed you a picture of Tom Mboya. We're celebrating 50 years, not actually observing 50 years since his assassination. We're celebrating his life. And we have a lot saying Africa needs a statement to make. How about giving examples of those unused resources? In the long run, university will transfer that load to students. I think a lot of reactions there. Maybe just give it 10 seconds to be winding up. 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
My part in short. I think it's time, as if I was in charge, that to bring the private sector to the Senate, to the classroom. And the faculty also should take leave and work in the industry.
Thank you. 10 seconds.
Last one, leverage on fourth industrial revolution as
Thank
universities.
you. 10 seconds, Mwenja.
CBC needs to succeed we don't have a choice, and that's the way to go as far as our education is concerned.
Right. Martin?
It's our life, it's our children's lives, so we do not have to rush ourselves.
Yes.
Let us take time and get it right. CBC or no CBC, what we need is people who have the knowledge and who have the competences that this nation requires.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, it's important to develop leaders with vision. The competence-based curriculum is very critical for this country, but we need to sequence it in a way that it can be implemented and have an impact in the education sector.
Right, thank you. Thank you, panelists, for that cogent discussion on the leadership of universities in the country. And of course, this is an ongoing discussion and developing story in this country as well as far as the CBC is concerned. But we thank you nonetheless also for your contribution on social media and your valued company. We'll leave you with this picture of Tom Mboya and of course, the Prime Minister then, Jomo Kenyatta, and Mama Ngina, the wife, and also the Pamela Mboya. And that was then also the Minister for Health, Dr. Njoroge was the Minister for Health by then. So we are celebrating his life 50 years ago.